Welcome to Beyond the Breakwater, where just beyond the crashing waves of fear, discomfort, and doubt lies the greatest potential for life transformation. We want to guide you into the open waters where the calculated risk you take becomes the turning point for you or your organization to thrive. So draw up your anchors and prepare for departure in this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Breakwater. My name is Lyndsay, and I'm joined today with Ed and our garage manager, Mike. So welcome, you guys. It's good to have you guys both back.
Always good to be back.
Yes, yeah. Very good to be here.
So last week, if you guys didn't listen to that episode, I would just pause, go back, listen to that, because we talked a lot about the garage ministry that Messiah started 11 years ago, His Hands Auto. Mike was kind of that window into the garage. He's there every day. He's working with the clients, customers, staff. You shared a lot of really compelling and heart-wrenching stories that I don't think people realize. This stuff happens every single day, where, you know, God breaks cars every day to bring people to us, and
That's
that
what
we
I
can
think.
just love. And yeah, it's incredible. So lots of great stuff in that episode. Go back and listen to it. But along the way, listeners have been asking us, like, please, all of these are great. These stories are amazing. We love hearing these stories, but how do we do it? Like, what are the blueprints of it? What are the nuts and bolts? We want to hear how to do something like this. This is not normal. So today we're going to be talking through all of that stuff. I would say if you're not a car person, I'm not a car person, this might get a little bit in the weeds of everything, but we said this also in the grocery store video of we are very intentional behind everything that was set up. There's not necessarily one thing that you would look at and ask, why is it that way? And it's, just cause. Like, thought was gone into every single part of this. So lean in, just be fascinated by it. If you're not thinking of starting something, maybe this will stir something in you to be like, oh, that's what you had to do. That's all it takes. So we'll get into that. But before we get started on all of that, Mike, could you give an overview? What is His Hands Auto in the three parts of, I guess, I'll just turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, His Hands Auto, we're a full-service auto repair garage. We focus on both retail customers and clients who may need some assistance with getting their transportation needs met with auto repair. We also have a dealership leg of it where we'll bring in donated cars, repair them as economically as we can to get them in the hands of people who are in need so they can have reliable transportation. And one of our newer things that we're going into is we're starting a parts room that we're planning on growing into a parts store so we can get people who maybe have some automotive-based knowledge, get people some parts so they can fix their own parts at a reasonable rate.
Awesome. Okay. Anything you would add to that, Ed?
No, I think it's amazing. I mean, just the three components really work well together. And we're really excited about the new parts department. It's really starting to grow and really becoming quite an entity for the garage.
Mm-hmm. And it's also a dealership, right? You have the dealership component?
Yes, we have the dealerships.
Okay.
Yes.
People always laugh when they hear that we're a church with a car dealership. And sometimes they're like, oh, Fast Eddie's, huh?
We should have named it that. That's funny. So, Ed, I was going to call you Eddie, and I just can't.
From this point forward, Ed will be known as Fast Eddie.
I shouldn't have said that.
So you've been here how long? How long have you been?
15 years.
Okay. When did the garage start?
We started 11 years ago is when we opened.
Okay. And how did it start?
Well, we were invited to participate with Family Life Radio. They invited the church to come as a funder, so we actually donated $500 to help change the oil in 35 single moms' cars in the community, and it was at a local garage. And I was there for part of the day, and they got food. We cleaned the cars, vacuumed out the cars, washed the cars, changed the oil, simple repairs. And when the end of the day came, 6 of those cars were condemned. And it means we told these moms, these single moms, I'm sorry to tell you, but your car's unsafe for your children, but it's not worth fixing. Goodbye. Have a good life. And it didn't sit well with me, and it really kind of broke my heart. And I remember going home and I couldn't get it off my mind. And I thought, well, maybe there's something we could do. So I started sharing it around church, and the church didn't have any money to do anything. And so we started going to different garages and said, do you think we could come to your garage? We had a mechanic in the garage that I had asked if he wanted to serve in this way, and he said he did. So we got insurance, we had parts, or we had tools, we had everything we needed. We just needed a place. And so we asked different garages, could we use your garage on the weekend and repair cars in our community for people that can't afford it? And I kept getting no. Everybody said no. Nobody wanted to do it. So it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. So where did you go from there? Like, how did you come to the decision, like, we're going to build a garage?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I know it sounds crazy, but I was just frustrated. And I was actually walking with one of our head elder at the time. And I said, I'm really frustrated because I can't figure this out. You know, we need to do something. I don't know what to do. And he said, maybe God has something bigger in mind. And sarcastically, I said, yeah, right. Like build a garage or what? And he goes, yeah, maybe. And honestly, that was a pivotal point because I had never thought about building a garage. And I didn't know the first thing about an automotive garage. And so we actually went to a local community college that has an automotive school. And I met a guy, his name was Tom, and I just said, Tom, can you teach me everything there is to know about a garage? We're thinking about building a garage. And he actually helped design it for me. But we had no money.
So where did you get the money to start that?
I started telling people about the dream. And I had somebody who, we actually had him as a guest, a number, quite a few episodes
I think it was
ago.
episode 15, I want to say.
And it was actually Bob and Kathy Hansen. And I had shared this with them. And they said, you need money. And I said, I do. And they said, well, we wrote a blank check earlier in the week. And now we know what it's for. And they made it out to the church. And that was the seed money that we could actually go into the community. So the community gave us $320,000, and we built a $340,000 automotive garage.
Wow. So what was the timeline of that? Because I feel like the way you're telling it, it's like, and this happened, and then the very next day this happened, and then I had this very first conversation, and we got money the next day and built the garage 2 days later.
How about a year? It took a whole year.
Okay. That's shorter than I thought it was going to be, honestly.
Yeah, it was a year of what do we do? How do we solve this? What would it look like? But a year later, we opened up.
Were there a lot of no's to funding it?
Even from the church.
Okay.
The board was split on the decision, and half of them said it would be the biggest mistake you ever made if we would open up a garage. And now I smile when I think about over the last 11 years, we've worked on 19,000 cars.
Yeah.
It wasn't a mistake. I would say that it was probably one of the greatest things the church has ever done and helped so many people and keep so many people safe. And so now our favorite days are when a car gets condemned, at least for me it is. And with the car dealership, Mike puts them into a car, sometimes for the cost of plates and a title, and they drive out in a different vehicle so they're safe with their kids. It's just an amazing ministry.
Yeah. Where did you go to, like, when you're talking about funding and asking people, like, was it people in the church that you asked for money, outside the church?
Well, Bob and Kathy attended the church, and they gave the initial gift. But then I just went, and everywhere I went, I would just tell the dream. And other churches gave us money. Dow is one of our big corporations in town. They heard about it, and they said, we love the idea, and we'd like to help you. So Dow Foundation actually gave a gift. We actually have a banner of all of our, we call them champions, because if it wasn't for all those donors, we would never have done this. And so it was kind of funny because when we built the garage, we didn't have a single lift in it. And I think recently I sent you a picture of it, that we have this beautiful, absolutely beautiful 5,000 square foot garage, not a single lift. And you know how God works. I was out I just happened to be out in the garage, and somebody from Dow showed up because they'd give us money to build it. And he just happened to drive by when I just happened to be in there. It was a God moment. And he comes in the garage, he goes, wow, this is amazing. You have no lifts. I said, we don't have any lifts. How come? We ran out of money. He said, well, how much would your lifts be? And I said, well, to start out, we need 2 lifts, and it'd be about $29,000.
Wow.
And he said, get your lifts, I'll get you the truck.
Wow.
So that's what we did. We bought the
Wow.
lifts. We had an open house and we started.
Wow. So you've been a part of, like, you've pastored other churches.
I did.
I don't know, like, what is normal in, like, the church realm of things. Like, if you're starting a ministry, does that money normally come from the congregation? Is it really odd? Like, I'm thinking, like, this is weird that, like, the community and people from corporations are funding ministries that the church is the initiator of. Is that weird?
I don't know how weird it is. I just know that's what God's been doing here. In fact, all of our ministries, it seems like the community is funding more and more of the ministries because they're really helping people.
I just think that's a good, like, highlight moment, because as listeners are thinking about starting ministries or what that might look like, I think some of the questions we get back or, like, concerns are like, well, we don't have the money to do that. Like, our faith family is tapped out, like, they're tithing so much, like, I don't know where we can get the extra money. And it's like, it's amazing to see how God uses the community to fund it.
Just a big dream.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you just have a dream and you go and talk to people about it, they buy into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. All right, Mike, let's turn the floor back over to you now. So talk about, sorry, I was just like, man, this is like a kind of a conversation happening on this couch.
We're ignoring Mike.
That's fine.
Our other guest.
I'll just sit over here and look pretty.
So talk about, like, the difference between a client and a customer.
Sure. A customer will be anyone who pays retail price, and a client is anyone who is ALS community or lower, who would qualify for a discount.
Okay. And how do you qualify the clients?
We don't qualify anyone at our shop. We have relationships with all the local charities and all the communities around town, and we have a referral form that they can fill out. Pretty much, they just verify the client's income, that they actually own the vehicle, they verify the registration, and then their ID. And
so, like, if I were someone who was being considered as a client and I came to, like, His Hands, what would you tell me to do? Like, where would I go? What would I fill out that referral form?
We'd probably, triage the car. We'd look at the car, type up a quote on everything it needs, give that to you. Any of the local DHS, Salvation Army, United Way, pretty much any other entity can verify everything that you meet the qualifications, and then they email me back, and that would allow us to roughly discount the labor rate about in half.
Okay.
That way, help you out on the labor. Sorry, I'm kind of stumbling over myself here.
No, you're good.
But yeah, just as long as the other entity verified, we would discount the labor rate. And one thing we do is we mark up our parts over acquisition price. That way we can keep the price of the part to our customer or client about what they would be buying it from a retail store.
Okay. Do you know why it was set up that way, like the referral process?
We didn't want to get involved in saying yes or no to anybody.
Why is that?
We didn't want it to look like we had favorites or anything like that. We'd rather just have it come in as a referral to us.
I think from my standpoint, we were really concerned that people would storm the church at Messiah and just say, we'd like to get our car work done. And we didn't want to be in a position to say, bring in your finances. So a lot of these agencies are amazing. This is what they do. They look at people's finances all the time. So people bring in their W-2s, bring in their tax forms for lots of different services. And because we're talking a lot of money, I mean, Mike, it's up to how much? $500 or something? That
a lot of money
a
for
client can, discount. I mean,
yes.
I mean, it's a significant amount of money. So when you're discounting that much money, we want somebody to just say, do they own the car? I mean, we had to smile one time when somebody came in with a BMW and said, I'm a client. And we kind of smiled and we're like, really? You're a client with a BMW? well, it was her dad's car she brought in,
Oh.
trying to get a discount for her dad. So
Oh.
it's
Okay.
things like that we're
Disqualifying.
trying to help out. But if I could just clarify the discount, when we give a person a discount, it can seem like we're just writing something off. We're not. The church is actually paying for that discount as a gift. So out of the offerings, we take 10% of that, our tithe, and we gift the garage the discount so that the garage is actually, making full price per hour. But the discounted price is then like charged to the church, and then the church is paying the garage.
Wait, so the church like covers the difference
Yes.
of like what the client will pay, and then the church covers the difference to match the full
Yes.
retail price. Okay.
Yes. And the church is really wanting to help people that are struggling. And so this is how it's set up from the beginning.
So when you guys partner with agencies like Salvation Army, DHS, how did you go about building those partnerships and setting up that system with them?
To be quite honest with you, they're just in love with it. I know they've asked if other counties and other agencies have someone like us in them, and the need is really out there. So, but they see that we can do things at a discounted rate for the client, and they know that if they have X amount of dollars set aside for it, their dollars will go farther.
Okay.
Mike, talk a little bit about when we were opening up the garage, there was a perception that we were taking business away from other garages.
That's a great question.
Very true.
Talk about like what's the reality, because we're not taking.
The reality is I have a great relationship with just about every garage in town. They know before we were open, if someone was there in need, they knew they would either have to write it off and take a loss, or tell them no, or just send them away. Now they have another option. If someone can't afford the repair, they can send them over to us. That frees up their time, so they can take more of their full paying customers in, and it's actually increased their bay turnaround and their dollars.
So that's kind of incredible. The accusation was you're going to take business away from them, and actually what happened was everybody made more money.
Yes.
Because we were serving the population that just needed a little bit of help.
Yeah.
But Mike, you also do some things with other garages. Like we have better equipment in our garage than some of the other garages.
Yeah, we have a lot of equipment, and it's not uncommon just about every week to have someone call up, hey, we don't have this tool. Do you have it? Is it okay if we borrow it? Is it okay if we come over and use your alignment rack? Can we use whatever we have available? And we make it available to them. We are there to partner with them and help them. They're members of the community just like everyone else, and our whole mission is to help everyone in the community.
So people's perception, Mike, I've heard this over the years when you say you're a church with a garage, they think we got a dirt floor, a couple floor jacks, a little pole barn, a little garage out in the back. Tell us a little bit more about the garage.
Well, the garage, it's a very big building. We can fit 8 cars in at a time. We have 7 lifts. We have an alignment rack. Most of our equipment is Snap-on. We've got tire machines. We've got exhaust pipe benders. Everything is top of the line. We have every equipment available to us that the dealerships have. We just we spared no expense so that the customers and clients can have a top-notch experience. And a lot of them will come in and they walk around and they turn in their paper and they look and they're like, this is a real garage. It's like, yes. And they're like, you mean you guys have their certifications and you have equipment? It's like, yep, everyone's has their certifications, and we have all the equipment that you need.
So we're not just a fly-by-night garage. I mean, talk about certifications with the state of Michigan.
Yes, Jonathan is a master certified tech. He has all of his certifications. Garrett is our tech that is building up. He has about 5 certifications. He is working on getting the rest of his so he can be master certified. It's something that we take to heart. We make sure everyone's certified. We enroll any of the employees into training classes on a regular basis. We just had them down in Grand Rapids for 2 days of training on new product and new technologies. The local dealership group, Garber Management, lets us attend all of their training facilities, and they let us do their training and on all the new technologies that the new cars are coming out with. We get a lot of support from the community, and training's big to us. We like to make sure everyone's top notch and knows everything that's out there.
That's really awesome. Sometimes when I'm talking to other pastors, which we were talking last week, we were with a group of pastors. One of the questions I came up with was they're all volunteers, right? So would you say that your garage is filled with all these amazingly certified techs and they're all volunteers, right?
Well, we're about a half mix. We have half of the employees are full-time paid employees, and then we have some retirees. We've got 3 retirees that work, who they have certifications, but at least the one has certifications. The other 2, I think, let them expire because they're retired. But they volunteer and they work alongside the techs, or they will do things as easy as maybe cleaning up and putting tools away and taking out trash and just helping wherever the need is.
How do you pay for all of that? Because I'm hearing the church makes up the difference of what you're paying the client rate to get to the full retail rate. But I'm hearing you got to pay staff. I'm sure there's lights, overhead costs involved. So how is all of that covered?
Well, we do charge for our services. It's at a discounted rate, but the goal is going to be to get it self-sustaining and to have it where we can at least cover the payroll and parts to help the customer or client. We don't want them to have to pay for a lot of the overhead with the equipment or everything, but we want to be self-sustaining where we can at least cover the parts bill and the payroll.
So, Mike, you've talked in the past, retail, for a year. So how much retail work would you say the garage does? If we were paying or charging full price to everybody,
if we were charging a full retail price in 2023, we would have done just about $1.25 million of retail work.
Okay, wow. That's a lot of work.
It is.
And so it's not a small operation. I mean, when I think about the church budget is about $1.2 million, the garage, one ministry is doing the same amount of work, retail work, as the church budget for the whole year as well. Okay, so that's retail, but how much are we actually charging people?
We had discounted that down to about $450,000.
Wow.
Okay, that's a huge discount. And then the church last year, I believe we gave about $70,000 towards the garage.
Yes.
So I know we've talked about a multiplication principle, but I think this is one of those perfect examples that the church is investing $70,000 instead of just writing $70,000 and sending it away to somewhere to help something. We invested it in the garage, and the garage took $70,000, multiplied it to $450,000.
Can you explain that more? I always need the help.
Well, because if the church gave zero, the garage wouldn't be here. So the church invested $70,000. Then when you take that $70,000 plus what people are paying, it's doing the equivalent of just cash, $450,000. So it's almost like when Jesus told that story about, the master went away and gave his servants, 5 bags of gold, and one had 5 bags, one had 3, one had 1. One took the 5 and went and invested it and made 5 more. So he started with 5, he got 10. And I've taught that lesson many times over the years, but now I'm actually watching it okay, garage, we're going to give you 70 bags of gold. And they turned it into 450 bags of gold, of ministry. But actually it's 1.25 million of actual ministry that they did. So it's really taking $70,000 and multiplying it over and over and over and over and over again to get this kind of a return. And I know the church doesn't talk that way.
Yeah.
But for the financial people, it'd be well, what's the return on investment for $70,000 of tithe? How about $1.25 million of ministry?
It's easier
That's
to
what's
like
amazing.
understand in the lens of when we talk about it with food. And maybe that if anybody is still confused, that I feel like might give just a little bit more clarity because it is just a little bit simpler
Yeah.
to understand, where it's like if you have like $60,000 going into buying food, and rather than giving all of the food away, which is a normal model, whether it be welfare or food giveaways, something that a church is putting on, the normal model is let's raise up $60,000, buy $60,000 worth of food, we'll give it all away, it's gone, and now we're going to do another food giveaway next year and raise again another $60,000. dollars So when you're charging for something, we have $60,000 worth of food put into it. We charge, we get back $60,000 because we charged, and now we ended the food, not giveaway, but the
year.
the ministry. Yep, we ended the year. We have the same $60,000 to buy the same food again and do twice as much ministry with the one gift of money.
Yes. Okay, that's a great segue because actually that was something that we learned through the Bridge Food Center. And Mike, you've come from a parts store background. That's been your whole career since, I think you told me since you were 14 or 12.
I was counting inventory in part stores. My grandpa and my dad owned part stores. So since the time I could walk and count and write, I was, I think, in a store one way or another.
So you had come to me and said, I just have an idea of that we can actually serve more people if we open up a parts department.
Right.
Walk us through what is that?
Well, I know what kind of markups the part stores have. I've been in that industry forever. I knew what we were buying the parts for and that we were still able to mark those parts up under what the retail was through a part store, or at least close to it. I knew if we could start buying direct, we could have a little bit more on the back end. So we'd be paying ourselves that amount instead of paying a retail store, and then maybe not taking as much of that 70,000 tithe from you and just having the parts department cover that and being more self-sufficient.
So if somebody would go to a local parts store, they would have a retail price, right?
Yes.
If you go to another garage, they would start at that retail price and charge more, correct?
Well, if a part store would have a retail price, and then they may have a wholesale price that they sell to the garages for. But along with that, there's also a suggested list sales price.
Okay.
And a lot of the garages will either sell at that list price, or some of the garages will even put a percentage increase over that list price to cover their expenses.
Okay. So if there's a retail price, and then you as a repair facility go to a local parts store, you get a wholesale price.
Correct.
So what you're saying that if we open up a parts department, which we did, you get a better price than the wholesale price.
Yes.
A much cheaper price.
Yes.
Okay.
Very much.
So now let's apply the same principles.
Yeah.
So what would be your goal? I know they were so gracious. Now, normally, how much does it cost to start a parts store?
It's usually between $300,000 and $350,000 to start a store.
It's a lot of money, and it's a lot of money for a church to come up with to start a parts store. So you, actually, with relationships you built over the years, you went and talked to somebody, and what?
Yes,
were they
I
able
talked
to
with
do?
a regional sales manager, and they let me buy in with some pallet drop ships starting at $15,000.
Okay, so here's the rest of that story. So one person who came to a Beyond the Breakwater workshop loved the whole concept of the Bridge Food Center and was gracious enough to give us a very generous check for the food center. Well, when you came to me with this idea, I called her up and I said, I know you love the idea of the Bridge Food Center with food. How would you like to do the same thing for parts? And so she was kind enough to give us the seed money and then added another $5,000. So we started with $20,000.
Right.
And you took that $20,000 and you've invested it in parts.
Yes.
So will these parts ever run out?
They will not. They're all really popular movers for the year range that we work in. And every part we've put in, we've had sales of at least 3.5 times per year.
Okay.
So we will have the turn to keep them. So every time we sell that, we'll have the money to replace it. So the gift will really never run out because it'll always be there.
So that $20,000 we're going to have forever.
Right.
Okay, so you had explained to me that for every $5,000 that we buy of parts, we'll save the garage how much per month?
About $1,000.
Okay, so this is for the listeners who we're kind of in the weeds, but the garage is being underwritten by the church, and the mechanics, we want to pay them more. We would love to pay them more. So what we're actually doing is using a parts department as a funder for another ministry. So we're using one ministry to save $1,000 a month that can be then put into the garage so that maybe the church wouldn't have to give as much as they're giving now, so the church can put that money in other places to do greater work, while it also provides money so that mechanics can be paid more and make a better living so that we can keep getting great mechanics. So we're using one ministry to now fund another ministry. So your goal is about $250,000
Yes.
for the garage? Okay, so now we're in the process of doing fundraising to say for every $5,000 we get, we save $1,000 a month. Okay, now if you do the same math, this is, again, I know I'm in the weeds. That means if we're $5,000 gift and we save $1,000 a month, that means every 5 months we've doubled the money.
Right.
Okay, does that make sense? So that, like, in 5 months we've saved for $5,000 gift. In 5 months, we've saved $5,000. So we've recycled the $5,000 every 5 months.
Because that is the turnover of that inventory.
That's that $5,000 inventory.
Yep.
In 5 months, we've used it all, but we saved 5,000 months.
Yep.
So every 5 months, we've doubled.
Okay, because you've saved 5,000.
Yes.
And you've also
Retain
earned five.
the original
Yes.
value.
Yeah.
We had
Okay.
5,000 and we saved 5,000 in 5 months. So that means every year, those dollars are being turned over 2.5 times. See, now this is what's crazy about investing in the kingdom of God. Because if you do something like this and somebody says, I'd like to give a gift of $100,000, I mean, imagine that $100,000 producing $250,000 every year of ministry.
Yeah. It's kind of cool to be on the start of this, because it's like we've heard the numbers from the bridge of like that initial 60,000 being recycled 42 times. And it's like, this is the very start to this. So imagine in another like 11 years, what we'll be able to say of like that initial gift has been recycled
Yes.
this many times.
So the gift is recycling, and we're using it over and over and over again. So any donor would be like, wow, I give you a gift of $5,000, and in 20 years, you still have my $5,000, and you've used it 2.5 times every year. That's huge. That's a huge thing for churches to get their arms around. At the same time, let's not miss, what is the impact? How many lives are going to be impacted by that gift over the course of time? Because now we're able to help more people, because there's more revenue to help more people. Okay, Mike, there's another side of this too.
Okay.
That if we raise to 200,000, that's actually, that's my goal for this whole year, is to go meet with 10 people and see if I can raise $200,000 so that we can get $200,000 of parts. I just mentioned that yesterday to the team. That's my goal. So if you had $200,000, it's just not feeding the repair facility. Now you want to actually hire some people.
Yes, I would put some staff in to man it, and we could keep our model of giving people second chances and getting people acclimated back into everything and just make it go.
So you already interviewed somebody to be the parts manager.
Yes, I
And
did.
hopefully they're going to be starting next week.
Probably about 2 weeks. Yes.
Okay, a couple weeks out. So by the time that everybody listens to the podcast, they will
should
have
be
been
aboard.
hired. Yeah. Then your goal, if we had that $200,000 gift, you would hire how many people?
Probably at least 3 more.
Okay, so we would have 3 drivers. This is where it talks about the impact of the ministry. So now you're going to impact a parts manager,
Right.
and you're going to impact 3 drivers. And you know the impact of that. You see drivers every day,
Right.
and you see how.
We have lots of customer touches, lots of just lots of interaction with suppliers, with vendors, with salesmen, with customers, with clients. There's a lot of influence there.
And there's a lot of care for those drivers, because sometimes
Yes.
drivers aren't treated the best in other garages, and they come to our garage and they're always treated with love and respect, kindness.
Can you share the story too about Jeremiah driver? Because I don't want people to miss that, like the intentionality that both of you and your staff put into caring for people. Like, I think as we talk about all of the numbers and the business stuff, people are probably thinking like, oh my gosh, like this is a business. Why isn't the church in the business of doing this?
Yeah.
But don't miss the life impact. Talk about Jeremiah.
Well, I think we can both talk about Jeremiah because.
Oh,
see,
you were there
before-
for that too?
Yes.
Well,
Oh, I didn't know
Jeremiah
that.
worked for Mike.
Yeah, he worked for me.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so both of us, we've never shared this story together. You've only
that's
heard my
fun.
perspective.
Right.
So before Mike was hired, I was Wes was our original garage manager, and he had left. So for 5 months, even though I'm pastor at Messiah, I was running the garage. So I was the garage manager, and that's how I got to know Mike, because I was on the phone with Mike at least 15 or 20 times a day, getting parts.
Oh.
Right.
And that's how it all started, because one day Mike just blurts out, "So did you fill that position yet?" And I said, as a matter of fact, no. And so that's where that whole story of Mike coming out.
Okay.
Right.
So Jeremiah was working for you, and I don't know if you want to speak about Jeremiah, but Jeremiah
Yeah, you
came
should.
in one time.
I didn't know that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, he came to us, and he was a delivery person, and he was, or is, a good younger guy, and he was always interested in learning more about the church. He had family members that had been coming to the church, but he never was really brought up in it. And he came to me the one day, he goes, "I really like the way you guys run things. I like everything. I would like to learn more about it. Do you think you could put me in touch with Ed so I can possibly get baptized?" So I called Ed. I said, "Hey, Jeremiah wants to talk to you about getting baptized. Can you make time in your schedule to meet with him?" He goes, "Certainly." So talked with him, talked to him about what everything would mean to come aboard to the church, and he did it, and he got baptized, and I kind of stood up kind of like in a sponsor type role with him as he got baptized into the church.
It was amazing. I remember the day he walked in, because one day he was really down, and I just
Was
said,
this the day Mike called you and said, like, come out, he wants to talk? Or like
no.
what? Okay.
No, actually, we didn't.
It
I
kind
don't-
of grew over about a few months. So.
Okay.
So his grandpa had died, and he was just really sad one day. And I said, "You want to talk?" And he said, "Yeah." So we just went back in the shop and chatted for a while. And so I didn't know anything about what you guys had talked about. I just remember one day, Jeremiah came walking in a few weeks after that day. He goes, "You never told me you were the pastor of the church." And he goes, "I want to get baptized." I said, "When?" He goes, "Right now." And I said, "How about Sunday?" Sunday be amazing. So yeah, that was an incredible. It's just, but that's the garage and Mike and the parts store and just caring for people. So now let's apply it. I mean, now we get to hire 3 more drivers.
Right.
And what would those drivers be doing, Mike?
Oh, they'd be checking in parts, doing inventory, putting things away, pulling orders, billing orders, delivering orders, both, potentially to our shop and to all the local shops in the community.
Okay, that's what I want to chat about, because, we've talked about interactions with people. So what our drivers would be, instead of drivers now coming and actually receiving ministry from us, now you'd have drivers that are being cared for by you that are now going out to other locations and being Jesus to everybody in those other shops. It's amazing. I mean, it's just, honestly, I think this is one of the coolest things I've been a part of. And we would never have done it if it wasn't for Mike.
It's really awesome. Is there anything else you think would be like beneficial for listeners to know about, like the blueprint, the model, anything about the garage from either of you?
Good question.
Like, okay, what about, like, you kind of mentioned this last episode asking, like, okay, what do listeners do before they go? how can people start if they were to ask you, like, I want to start this, what's the blueprint, what do I do next?
Well, blueprints always do something, take the first step. Always, there's just hear what the need is. Even if you have to huddle up with a group of guys or gals at the church, just figure out what the need is. And it doesn't have to be some big glorious thing. Maybe it's someone it needs help chopping wood for the winter. Maybe it's someone needs help with shoveling. Yeah, it could be anything. Just find what a need and take one step to fill a need, and it can grow from there probably way faster than you'd ever think it would.
So, Mike, maybe just from this standpoint, how much would a lift cost? Just a standard lift?
A standard lift is probably going to be about $18,000 to $19,000.
Okay, so let's just say a church wanted to start a ministry. You have this probably a lot. Do people take care of their cars, especially the under 72,000? Do they change their oil regularly?
The answer would be they would like to, but a lot of times their budget doesn't allow them to. So they may hear one issue, or they may know they have one issue, but they put it off until there's several issues, and then they're in a tailspin.
So if the church had a location, somebody had a location, and the church invested in a lift, maybe even a used lift, and got a lift, and even just did oil changes for people, that would make a big difference, wouldn't it?
Yes. Oil changes prevent a lot of engine work.
Yeah. Well, we were doing a lot of food giveaways before we started the bridge. And I don't know if you were part of that or not, but we would do oil changes for people for $5. So they would come to a food giveaway, and we could take about, 35 or 50 cars, and they would stop back at the garage, get their oil changed, and then go get food, and then head home. And that's how the garage was used. That just we brought in a whole lot of volunteers, and boy, we were going through a lot of oil that day.
That's a great start. Yeah, right. It's a great starting point. And we always say, like, we're not sharing all of this with listeners so that you can copy paste. But Mike, you said, like, find out what the need is, and you don't know what could grow from there. Maybe it's a shoveling service, maybe it's a mowing and lawn service, maybe anything. But listen to those who are around you, listen to where God might be leading you, and just take the first step. And we would also love to be a part of that in any way that we could help too. So you can email us if you have any questions at hello@beyondthebreakwater.org. We'd love to chat. And if you want to see just pictures of the garage, you can go to hishandsauto.com, right?
Yes.
That's that.
Yep.
Okay. There's always like .org, .net, .com. hishandsauto.com. Jeez.
And aren't you the marketing person and director of communication? And you're
There's
not
a lot
sure where
going
to go?
on up here, but not at the
I'm
same time.
97.3% sure that's correct. So.
Great. And you work there.
Right.
Yeah. Great. Well, great. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Mike, thank you for being here today and just sharing your heart. And
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been great. Ed, thanks. We will see everybody next week. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Beyond the Breakwater, a podcast of Elevate Community Ministries. Don't let the conversation stop here. You can email us at hello@beyondthebreakwater.org. We would love to chat with you, answer questions, plan a visit, and help you take your next step. We'll see you next week.